right, good morning, folks. Thank you so very, very much for making it to the 8 a.m. session after the attendee party. You all rock. Woohoo! Give yourselves a hand. You totally rock. Hopefully you had an amazing time. We will have a great roller coaster of a session for you this morning as well. It'll be fun. So it'll be good. So we're going to talk through a number of things here inside of communications and communities. And so I've got a couple of co-hosts with me. My name is Naomi Moneypenny. I lead product development for Viva Amplify and some other pieces inside of SharePoint as well. And I am joined by...
I am Jason Mayans, VP of Product and Analytics for the Viva Engage team.
So we've got a jam-packed session for you all. We're excited to be able to present you this whole solution and think about all these different areas together. So the way that we're going to do this, I'm going to do some quick intro and framing on how we think about this solution, some of the key challenges that you all have, and then we're going to go through each of the apps. And so we're going to have a rapid fire there, about 10 minutes each on each of those areas, and then we'll talk a little bit about our roadmap coming up as well. So first off, hopefully some familiarity with Microsoft Viva. How many folks are actually using Microsoft Viva right now? Just curious. Okay, couple, 3, 4 folks. Okay, that's great, helpful to see, thank you. So we want to see, here's all kind of the summary essentially with Microsoft Viva. We want to look at this as our employee engagement solution, and this really has an encompassing of all of these different applications. There's an amazing range of functionality here that can bring it to life for folks. But we're going to concentrate primarily on inside of the communications and communities area. And so this is really about how do we get our messages out there, how do we reach our workforce and ensure that we're able to get engagement from our employees and that they have the timely communications that they need and that they have access to all of the great company resources as well. Now, Viva's made up of these different solutions, but as I mentioned, we're going to really focus on making sure that we get the mission and alignment piece and driving the engagement from there too. Okay, so a couple of things on communications itself. Hopefully many of these challenges resonate with you all because these are the things that we're aiming to solve for you. A couple of areas here that I wanted to highlight. First off, obviously as a communicator, one of the issues is making sure that people are actually reading your messages. Are they reading your messages? Are they even receiving your messages, right? And we want to make sure we spend all of this time crafting our communications to go out there, but are they actually receiving them and are they being effective in their needs? We also understand that folks are being asked to really think about engagement with those communications. It's not enough to just push out some emails or a newsletter, etc. We want to make sure that people are engaging. Are they having two-way conversations? Are they engaging with their leadership as part of this? Are they able to ask questions, get clarifications on these areas? And then even thinking about how they're helping to transmit knowledge as those communications improve. And so there's a big challenge inside of an organization too. And then, of course, one of the big areas for us is understanding the rise of AI, right? We want to think about how those co-pilot experiences are coming in. They come with good things, they come with bad things occasionally. So we want to think about how we're using AI effectively to help us scale our message, helping us be more creative, helping us to author some of those areas, but also making sure that AI is being used effectively to transmit and to scale our message into there. So, do these challenges resonate for you all? Yes? Show of hands, head nodding. I know it's early, folks, but we're going to do this. All right, that's good. Thank you. So we're going to think about how we're helping you then to modernize what communication strategies you're using. And so we want to think about how we're really driving engagement through all of these different ways. It's not enough, right, to just send out your message. We want to think about all the different ways that we can actually bring that to life for you. So we've got multimodal communications. Multi you will see across all of this slide here. Thinking through, we've got multi-channel. We want to be able to reach people wherever they are, thinking about whether they want to ingest that message inside of Teams, inside of Outlook, inside of Engage, inside of SharePoint, inside of Connections, wherever they need to be able to read. And then they're thinking about that speed and urgency piece of it too. So is this message something I have to react to immediately? Is it a crisis? Is it something I need to take action on in the next 30 days? Or is it something that's just, useful to know inside of my company? And so how do we think about how we're balancing that speed and urgency as part of this too? And then we also want to think about all of the different media types that we have here, right? We want to engage people with video. We want to use images, right? People are living in this very social communications world. And so how do we bring all of that to our step as well? And then lastly, I would talk about, that AI piece here. So how do we use the analytics that we're generating from those effective messages to make sure that we're fine-tuning the messages we need in the future? And so we want to learn, obviously, as we go through this, right? As we can see how people are actually crafting their message, thinking about how they're consuming it, how do we then tailor our communications going forward to make sure all of that is part of here too? So lots of goodness on here. We want to think about, establishing that voice, but take away that there's lots of places and lots of ways that we want to modernize those communications, not just about, putting posters up on the wall as it was maybe 10 years ago, and how you consume that information more generally. So I have a quick video to be able to show you a little bit about Microsoft Viva and to introduce this solution to you.
Your company has important news, and you need to get the word out fast. Company announcements, policy changes, links, and resources, they all need to be sent right now. They need to be seen, and they need to be right. So what's a communications team to do? Kickstart your campaigns with Microsoft Viva. Share news with everyone and show them why it matters for their work. Use Viva to plan, create, and schedule your campaigns. Then publish to the places where employees are already working and sure to see them. Next generation AI from Copilot in Microsoft Viva helps you figure out what to say, what tone to use, and nudges you with suggestions of how to make your posts better. Easy to understand reports show you how your campaigns are performing and which messages are working best. Create a high-performing workplace through aligning your employees, all easier and faster with AI. Unlock your communication superpowers with Microsoft Viva.
Awesome. So we want to unlock your communication superpowers with what we can do with Microsoft Viva. So are you feeling superpowered? Yes? Okay, make sure we do this. All right, as we talk through this area here, I wanted to make sure that we're resonating in terms of the types of personalization that we're offering. We want to think about these applications that we're going to go through in just a second. But we want to make sure your employees have access to the company resources they need, first off, right? How do I make sure I'm establishing that connection with my organization? I can see the kind of that front door that's coming into my company, but I also can see and balance that with my individual needs. So ensuring that I have the dashboards, the tasks, et cetera, that is important to me too. Of course, we want to make sure as part of this too that we're engaging folks, right? We're engaging folks across your organization. How do we ensure that we have that two-way dialogue happening inside of your company, making sure that people can scale, whether they're leaders or they're just imparting communications news. We want to make sure that we're fostering that dialogue across your organization too. And of course, we can use all of that great conversational knowledge here to help us to power questions and answers for the future and help scale and crowdsource some of that knowledge too across the company. And then finally, we want to think about how we're putting together those messages in the first place. How do we reach people wherever they are? And so we want to help you author and create messages that are really effective. We want to think about both the writing guidance and the guidance and campaign that you might have, but we also want to make sure you're reaching those objectives with really rich analytics as part of this too. And so we're going to go through all of these different areas and establish how you're being helped at each stage of that process too. Now, in here, we also think about that value piece. So Viva's very flexible here, right? We can think about all of these different departments and industries and how you might use this. And so I wanted to check inside of the room as well, like how many folks are in these different areas. So are you actually a communications professional? You're in internal communications? Just checking. We've got about 5 or 6 folks. Okay, awesome. Sorry, I missed the folks over here. 1 person all the way over there. Thank you. So it's all good. So that's awesome to hear. Folks who are in maybe IT, I'm just checking. Okay, looks like good to know. Thank you. Any other folks from HR maybe? Just checking, seeing. No, HR. Okay, that's very helpful. And then it helps us to resonate and understand here these different areas and how folks are actually doing these communications. And so when you look at this kind of solution, we want to think about how we're delivering value across all of these lines. It's not just about our wonderful corp comms professionals, but we want to think about how we're helping to scale those messages effectively from the leaders in each of these areas. And so, of course, you'll be partnering with them as a communications professional, but most folks are sending out messages themselves, right? They're giving you things like project updates all the way through to leadership changes and things that are most effective. And so we want to make sure that that value story is going across all of those different roles as well. Now, finally, a couple of other things here. We can think about communications and communities and how it's helping to drive performance inside of your organization. We know that so many of the projects that you have underway, if you're thinking about digital transformation, as I'm sure you are inside of this Microsoft 365 collaboration conference, we can think about how we're using this to drive change management. You can think about how we're using this to make sure that knowledge sharing is happening effectively, and then how we're helping to establish connection for leaders. And so this solution is really helping you to drive that performance inside of the organization, take action where you need it, and then ensure that you're actually putting together a culture and a community of open and transparency inside of the company too. Lastly, one of the areas I want to show you is an extra benefit that you get as part of this solution as well. So People in Viva is a component. We won't go into it in depth today, but People in Viva helps you to get a great sense across the organizational chart that you have. Thinking through that hierarchy inside of your company, oftentimes it's difficult to see how people are connected across your organization. So wouldn't it be awesome if you could explore all of that? And so you can actually use this. It's directly inside of Viva here. We've got it inside of Outlook as well, or you can actually check into, here's a leader in this case. I can actually see how all of the folks that are connected here, and then I can also even see a roll-up of the objectives and key results that they have through Viva Goals. It's a really great way to be able to explore the organization, think about how people are connected in a different way, and ensuring that they have access to understanding about you as well. All right, good? Are we good? We clear so far? Yes? Getting some head nods? Okay, good, thank you. All right, we're gonna go into each of the different applications now. I'm gonna bring up Jason to talk about Viva Engage.
All right, thank you, Naomi. Awesome. So, what is Viva Engage? Viva Engage, the role of Viva Engage, it's the platform that helps connect all of your employees and leaders together across divisions, locations, and roles in order to align on strategy, build culture, and share knowledge. So communities help bring together employees in groups for some shared purpose. Employees can share their ideas, their knowledge, and their feedback in Engage. And Engage is the only platform that enables leaders and communicators to communicate with the entire organization at scale in a two-way dialogue. And it's the place for capturing tacit knowledge that's captured in employees' heads from experts throughout your company. So I want to start by talking about what is available with Engage in Microsoft 365, and then what do you get when you upgrade to the Viva suite. So in Microsoft 365, very quickly, you get communities. So you can create and manage communities and join them of any size, public and private, official or restricted. And there's a set of basic analytics available for communities and conversations. Number two, you get storylines. So storylines are basically like a personal page where leaders and employees can share their expertise, their knowledge, and their experiences. And you can choose whether you roll out storyline to everyone in your organization or more of a select few. Third, you get live events. So with live events, you can host very large online video meetings where people can ask questions and interact with the event. And then third, you get a Q&A experience. So you can ask and answer questions within communities. And with Teams Q&A, you can ask and answer questions and upvote them within any sort of Teams meeting. So all of this functionality you get across clients, and it's all built on the security and compliance promises of Microsoft, of course, enabling e-discovery, data retention, and integration with Microsoft Purview. So that's what everybody gets as part of Microsoft 365. But we're here today to talk about Viva and the connection and community solution. So what do you get when you get Viva? So adding in Viva gives you an experience tailored toward helping you supercharge your leadership and communication capabilities, and including more Copilot to help you author posts. On top of Q&A capabilities, AI-powered knowledge sharing helps employees find answers quickly and connect with experts. Third, you get the ability to scale leadership communications and communities across tenants, helping you to serve more complex organizations. And fourth, you get robust analytics capabilities with AI-based summarization and analysis. All right, so I'm going to go through each one of those, starting with leadership and comms, and we're going to do a bit of a whirlwind tour here. All right, so everything in Engage starts with making a post, but people often, they aren't sure what to post about. So Copilot in Viva Engage helps you write your post. So first, it can inspire employees and leaders on what to post on using conversation starters. So these are topics to post on that are based on active conversations, campaigns, and communities in your network. Second, it can then help you draft your post or even brainstorm on post ideas. And then, once you have your post, you can use Copilot to help you revise for length or clarity or tone. Lastly then, once written, you can use Copilot and ask it questions like, what other questions might my readers have about this post? What other information should I include? And it'll give you feedback. Now, we've also taken care to make sure that even with this AI-generated content, that we retain a sense of authenticity. So if you generate a post using the Copilot and you don't touch it, you don't edit it, you don't make it your own, it's going to give you a message that says, hey, you should personalize this to make it more authentic. And here's some ideas on the types of ways that you can personalize it to be yours. Now, with articles, you can now write rich, long-form content in Engage to create newsletter-type content or dive deep into a topic. Long-form articles drive 50% more reactions and 40% more overall engagement than regular short posts. And they're visually distinctive with article headers and section titles and can be made as storyline or community posts. With articles plus storyline together, you effectively have a blog that leaders and employees can use to share their vision, knowledge, and experiences. Using leader announcements on Storyline, you can reach your organization in Teams, Outlook, and Engage. Corporate communicators decide who is a leader at the company, and then announcements in Storyline created by a leader or their delegate, and then they trigger notifications that go out to Teams and Outlook. And then the leader's audience, which can be defined by an M365 group or a distribution list, determines who this announcement goes to. And the CEO and other top leaders can announce company-wide. Ask Me Anything events are question and answer periods where leaders and employees can interact to ask and address questions. Leaders and their delegates can moderate and approve which questions become public, so employees can submit questions and vote on their favorite. And then anonymous questions can be enabled in order to allow for the real questions to be asked. AMAs can be held in conjunction with a meeting or on their own as a purely online event. Let's talk about Leadership Corner. So Leadership Corner is the place for employees to interact with their organizational leaders and see all the aggregated activity of their leaders across the leaders' storylines and communities. And it's personalized to me in that it focuses on the leaders that are part of my management chain based on how the audiences are defined. So it gives employees a place to go to catch up on the latest from their leaders and then discover leadership events like AMAs. All right, with social campaigns, you can drive cultural initiatives and celebrate events like, say, Black History Month by getting employees to participate in posting using a hashtag. And executive sponsors can be noted to highlight the official support. A goal tracker can be used to show progress towards the campaign's goals, and you can gain insights about employee engagement and through campaign analytics, and then use that in the end to summarize the most popular conversations, the most active participants, and recognize them when that campaign is closed. Okay, so you can see there's a ton of value in Viva to consider for accelerating leadership and comms. I'm going to dive into knowledge sharing now. So with Answers in Engage, you can help connect employees who have questions with experts who have answers. On the left, the Answers Hub provides a home to discover, answer, and ask questions across the entire network. You can also follow topics here and view the badges that you've earned by helping others. And then targeted feeds and notifications help encourage experts to keep answering relevant questions for others. On the right, then, you can see the answers content within a specific community. Here, AI is used to show and suggest similar questions to the one that's being asked to save you the embarrassment of asking a question that's already been asked before. And this is great for, individual departments, communities of practice, or internal support communication. Now, once a question is asked and answered, that question really becomes durable knowledge for the organization, for reference for the future, to reuse. And one of the key ways that you can reuse this is that we're bringing this knowledge from Q&A in Engage into enterprise search. And this really helps employees find this information, this Q&A, within the flow of their work. And if they don't get a satisfactory answer here from enterprise search, you can even see where they can click and then go back and ask in answers, which will then be routed to an expert to answer. And then building on all of this, you'll see that our answers will shine through with Microsoft 365 Copilot, making these answers in Engage knowledge that Copilot can reason over. All right. So many of our largest customers through, mergers and acquisitions or subsidiary models or geographical concerns have multiple tenants that they're dealing with. So how do you communicate across multiple tenants and create a sense of one company when you need to? Well, with multi-tenant support in Engage, you can make this large organization seem like one when you need to. And this includes doing things like I talked about earlier, announcements and storyline. You can keep all employees informed about leadership perspectives and news. Communities, you can include employees from other tenants into communities. AMAs, you can run Ask Me Anything events for all your employees across all your tenants. Campaigns, you can drive social campaigns and initiatives so everyone can participate. And all of these things are supported by analytics. You can see comprehensive metrics and measure engagement across tenant boundaries. So this is great for the more complex organizations. So lastly, though, speaking of analytics, I'm going to get to our last pillar, advanced analytics. So you can leverage analytics to really get a deep understanding of the impact of your communications, but also get insight into what your employees are thinking about. And lastly, understand the overall health of your network. And one thing I want to say is, there's analytics at every level in our system. We've got conversation analytics, community analytics, campaign analytics, AMA analytics. We've got personal analytics for what I'm doing. We've got audience analytics for what a leader's audience is doing. And we've got network-wide analytics. Oh, and we've got Answers Analytics. I may have named them all, but I'm not quite sure. But what I'm going to show today is network analytics, which are available to admins and corporate communicators. Okay, so starting on this, you can understand the reach and engagement patterns relative to individual messages, communications channels, campaigns, events, and the whole network. And you can see how different activities like posting, reacting, commenting breaks down by endpoint. And then benchmarking shows how your organization's engagement compares to other organizations of the same size. And this is done without sharing any sort of individual information across tenants. Okay, next part of analytics. So you can measure the effectiveness of announcements on Engage and how quickly they're received, how quickly they're engaged with. You can also see top conversations on the network, really helping you to understand, what employees are talking about and where are the popular discussions happening. Network analytics provides an overall view of sentiment in the network, leveraging Azure Cognitive Services to help you understand how employees are feeling. And then theme extraction leverages an LLM to summarize the most active conversations in your network, group them by themes, and then summarize employee posts and comments on those themes, giving you a deep understanding of what's happening across your entire network. And all of this is here really to help you drive towards clearer business outcomes, including Engage's impact on employee retention, another metric that we show for you in network analytics. All right, so that is my whirlwind tour of what's in Viva and the CNC bundle for Engage. And I'm happy now to hand it over to Ed to talk about Connections. Ed.
Thank you. That was an awesome whirlwind tour. I'll see if I can match you in the same amount of time. Good morning. All right, we've got more people coming in. I'm curious, how many of you have deployed or are using Viva Connections? Okay, thank you very much. For the rest of you, hopefully this will be an exciting 10 minutes. So Viva Connections, the way we think about this is it is your company app. This is the thing that is designed to work across all three screens, your mobile, your tablet, and your desktop. And it brings together all the pieces of employee experience for your company. It is branded, it is intentionally that Microsoft steps back and it carries your company name. So when you look at kind of the pillars of what this app is, first and foremost, it's about bringing all your HR tools and applications together. Every company we talk to has between 10 to almost 100 or so line of business or individual HR apps. And one of the things Connections does is gives you a platform, whether it's a 20-year-old service sitting on a server in someone's office, whether it's cutting edge Azure, a Teams app, or anything in between can actually be pinned in here and integrate. So your employees have one place to interact so they can check their pay stub, they can request time off, they can order lunch, they can do tasking, all the things that pull them back to the company. This app is designed to answer, how am I supposed to connect back to all the things that my company has provided? Next up is just a core set of resources. Sometimes you need just links to your HR solution, to your legal solution. Here's the places you need to know about, and that can carry in your pocket, in your tablet, and desktop. And then finally, my distinguished colleagues here are all about community campaigns and news, and Connections is this place to pull personalized view of that together. We are the place that is really meant to be the employee experience shell for you. So first and foremost, communities and communications and community. First and foremost, we have a desktop experience with what we call this new Spotlight UI and news cards. Now, this is heavily based on SharePoint News, which, as Naomi will tell you, is a masterful orchestrator via Amplify. So as you do custom campaigns that go to SharePoint via Amplify, they're automatically going to show up in the Spotlight control, as well as special news cards to give you pop and instantly know, hey, here's something I should check out. But it's about more than that. When we also think about mobile, we've bet big on this machine learning-based feed, where you kind of bring in all this content that you want to discover. First and foremost, news that can be driven by Amplify or just people writing. Storyline, like Jason talked about, whether it's praise, whether it's a poll, question, anything you put into Storyline and connect across your company will start to show up here, and you can react, you can comment back. As well as video, you've seen a lot of this conference that stream in videos, this new critical medium, can go directly in here and watch on the go. And then finally, I don't know about you, every place I have is inundated with messages, inundated with, I don't have time to read it right now. I can save things for later and come back and say, that was really important. Or like in my case, if Dan Holm here praised me, I want to hold on to that because I remember it, it's a happy moment. Hopefully I can collect more than one. Next up, I really want to talk about when Connections bringing it together. So much of it is about showing off the premium investments you already have. So if you have bet big in M365 search, either through Microsoft Data Connect or deep customization. Wow, Viva Connections is going to be the way that directly in Teams, you can leverage that enterprise search that you have built on. I'm curious, how many people have customized enterprise search? Okay, a few more. This is for you. And what happens here is directly within Teams, you see I have this new pill architecture that says Connections, and I type OSG, and then right in line, you actually see that search. So your search and your company intranet is everywhere you're gonna be with Connections. Next up, we can't actually talk about anything without talking about Copilot, and Connections is no different. Copilot can be pinned directly into Viva Connections, as well as any other AI and integrated bot that you have. Many of you are considering many AI solutions across your company. Connections is the place where you can brand those, where you can do a call to action, where you can say, hey, here's how you should use this and when you should use it. Now, near and dear, we talk about communication in the news. A big thing that Connections just shipped was announcements. And announcements in news, the way we look at announcements is this is a thing you need to know. News is a thing that is good to know, but announcements, sometimes you absolutely need to know it. An acquisition, a store closing, changes in hours. And we've built this for corporate communicators. So from the top floor, you can communicate down about, say, a merger. For regional stores, so if you can do attribute-based targeting in AAD, like say all the stores in North America or all your buildings in North America. And then finally, Connections is starting to be the front door for Frontline Manager. So if you're using Teams as your frontline solution and you do Teams announcements, they directly flow into Viva Connections and you can connect back to them directly into the channel. And then, of course, as we've all talked about, analytics. You can't build a product today without analytics. You've had all these investments in HR tools. It's time to actually see which ones are getting used. So because you've pinned them all there via adaptive cards and you can integrate with them, you get to know like what tools are people actually using? How often do they use them? Are there days? If you look at 7 days, 30 days, 90 days, what are the things that are either app-based, are communication-based, or even link-based that are really driving your company engagement? And then finally, let's talk about multiple instances of Connections. Everything I just showed you sometimes needs to be carved out multiple times in your company. We built this experience really for conglomerates. Microsoft is a great example. Many of us here have worked for Microsoft for years. But Microsoft is Microsoft. It is LinkedIn. It is GitHub. It is Activision. All of those are incredible companies, and people who started in those companies feel incredible company brand loyalty to that. They also carry all their own HR tools. So Connections let you have multiple instances in the same tenant where you can have different logos. You can have different home sites and different intranet links. You can have different announcements, all managed by different people. You can have news that's custom there. You can do the theming and spotlight and custom UI, all based to a specific part of your tenant. Oh, we're gonna do AMA at the very end. And then finally, cards, all independently managed. And that is Connections in about 11 minutes. Naomi, will you come tell us about Amplify?
I'd love to tell you about it.
Oh, you don't need this.
I'm good. Thank you. All good. All right. Are you tracking so far, right? A lot of goodness, right, inside of this solution. Amazing things you see from Engage and how you can think about powering all those amazing communities as well as knowledge. Ed talked you through a little bit about Connections and thinking about that front door to all of those organizational resources you have and how you can send your message out to reach lots of different populations. So I'm going to bring it home with Amplify. Amplify is really focused on delivering a really effective message across your organization too. And all of Amplify is premium. You might have picked up as we're going through this because, one of us has to say the licensing and broach that subject, right? And so as you went through, you saw there's some seeded value that we have in Engage, and inside of Connections that is Microsoft 365 value. Those are things that you already have access to as a Microsoft 365 customer. And then, of course, there's premium capabilities. And you've seen that with what Jason and Ed have talked through. But all of Amplify is premium. There is no seeded capability inside of Microsoft 365. So I just want to make that super clear up front as part of this too. All right, so when we think about, really understanding what we can do with Amplify, this is about how do I reach those people wherever they are. I want to help take that message and take it to the next level. And whether that message is you're sending out a monthly update that you need to do for your project, all the way through to your corporate communications that are expressing leadership outcomes, we want to make sure that you have a great place to be able to do that. When we think about this with Amplify, we have this construct we call campaigns. And campaigns can be something that's really very simple. It could just be a collecting place, a folder essentially, if you will, to put all of your communications in. Maybe that's just your monthly updates that you're running. But it can also be a place where you can put together this understanding around a whole set of goals and objectives that you're trying to reach. And so when you look at this kind of communications piece here, I can use this in a very powerful and flexible way as well. So when we look at Microsoft with Viva Amplify, we want to think about how we're helping to measure the effectiveness of those communications too. But first off, I'm going to tour you through a couple of the different features that we have in here, just to so make it real, hopefully, for you all. We do have a session later on today, as I'm sure there is for Connections and Engage this week. We have a session later on today that helps us to understand a lot more of the features. So when you think about communications here, we want to make sure that we're actually sending out these communications and being able to give you the space to focus on your communication. So we've done a couple of different things here. We've separated out the message writing, so how I author all of that communication from how I'm actually distributing it. And so if you think about it as a communicator, you want to write that thing once and then have it basically amplify in lots of different places. So I can tweak it for all the different distribution points that I need it to reach to. If I need Teams, I want SharePoint, I want to send it in Outlook, I want to send it in Engage, I want to send it in Viva Connections, but I'm separating out that message authoring as part of this too, to make it really easy for people to do that. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we're using all of the goodness, right? We are built on top of SharePoint and Microsoft 365, and so things like the permissions pieces of this is all managed by that group's infrastructure, but we're also able to obey essentially sensitivity labels and other pieces here too. Now, a couple things that I want to mention from a campaign perspective, right? We can look at this as setting up a campaign goal and the campaign objectives. And this is really important because you have multiple stakeholders, right, inside of it. Communications are rarely authored by just one person. And so we want to make sure all of those stakeholders are actually aligned as part of this too. And so when we look at our messages, we want to make sure we have clear goals and clear objectives. But I need a reminder about that, right? It's oftentimes we have a briefing document that you might have put together for your campaign, and you said, hey, these are our goals, these are objectives, and then 6 weeks later when you're actually writing those communications, you have to go back and look back at all of that messaging. And instead, what we're doing now is taking that directly into the campaign and into the communications that you're writing. So you can see over on the right-hand side here, here's that briefing document. It helps to drive alignment with all of my stakeholders. And then over here on the right-hand side, you can see the writing guidance panel is actually that same document available to me as I am authoring the communications. It's a really great way to make sure that we have those messages, that objective in our heads when we're actually authoring too. It's a really cool feature that I think is very useful to many folks. And so inside of those campaign goals, we can actually look at different areas. So depending on how complex your campaign is, sometimes it might be something that's very, very simple, and you're like, yeah, I'm just going to send out my monthly updates, and that's good, right? And you don't need a specific set of goals and objectives around that. But when you have a more complex campaign, maybe you've got lots of multimodal distribution, as we talked about earlier, right? We want to make sure that we're effectively reaching those folks. So one of the big things that we're working on here is to make sure that you can actually set those campaign goals, what kinds of goals, how many people need to see this, what kinds of actions do they need to take as part of this, and then ensure that we're actually measuring that success, of course, with the analytics and reporting capabilities. So it's just a really cool way to be able to put together that structure that you need, if you need that piece of it, and then make sure that you're achieving what you're doing. And so the reason for all of that is to make sure that you can send super effective messages, right? We really want you to be sending the least amount of communications to hit your goals, right? And so think about it that way. Like, we don't want to be sending more notifications and more messages than we need to. We want to make sure that we're essentially hitting those goals and the objectives for your campaign. So a couple of things that we can do here as part of this. And so we want to think about that reach and impact of these different messages. And so this is a really cool area here to explore. We've talked a little bit about analytics across this solution, but we want to think about how we're actually using this inside of the information that you're generating for your messages. We want you to be empowered to take the next best action on your messages. So we want to be able to track, like, how are people actually engaging with that? How are they thinking about, where they like to consume that information so that you can tailor your message further. So if everybody's reading things in Engage, if everybody's reading things through Connections announcements, if they're reading things in their team's messages, it helps you as a communicator, right, to be more effective. So we want to be able to learn from that and then be able to apply that quickly to the messages that you're constructing too. Now, on top of this, I get to use extra organizational data. And so if you're using Entra, if you know what that is, Active Actor Directory, maybe that name as well, folks using it, okay, just checking. So if you're using that as kind of your organizational system in order to understand how things are connected in your company, the departments, the business units, all of that goodness, those are all pieces that you can use here as well. So I can bring in all of that goodness of data and then ensure that we're actually looking at those areas too. Now, of course, with communications here, this is a really cool piece, right? We want to make this easy for you, again, to separate out. I don't have to construct something separate in all of these different endpoints where my audience is. I want to think about how I reach all of them. Now, inside of Microsoft, we have internal communicators, of course, and we have found that on average, our internal communicators are saving 9 to 12 hours per week by doing this through Amplify, because they're not having to go to all of these different places and then be able to put all these areas together. So just really cool areas to be able to see here. We can, of course, do things like approvals, etc. Sorry, I should have talked about that here. Approvals here, making sure that we're actually checking all the reviewers. We can send things out for approvals. Oftentimes, if you're in corp comms, you need to have a big approval chain too, and you're able to easily do this here as well. Now, analytics, of course, is so important as part of this. We are making this even richer and better. So a lot of things that we have on the roadmap here are helping us to track, dwell time, making sure that people are actually doing that click through, taking the actions that we expect as part of this too, and then being able to break that down by your organizational hierarchy. So how many people in this department, in this location, under this organizational leader, right? Being able to understand all of that richness and how those people are consuming the message so that you, again, can take that next best action as part of this too. So lots and lots of goodness. Now, a couple things that I wanted to mention very quickly. So one of the areas, of course, you've heard so much about in the conference is Copilot. If you are adopting Copilot inside of your organization, we have a set of pre-canned communications. Yes, you get to use these things out of the box. You get to use what Microsoft is using internally, and we actually have that established as a template, so you can send out goodness here to help stimulate organizational usage of Copilot. We're also, of course, publishing, to engage storylines and communities. So we're really excited to be able to have that. It's just going into private preview right now. And so this is a great way to be able to connect and see all across the different ways that you're able to engage inside of Engage. And then, of course, we are also bringing together a lot of new goodness too. We want to make sure that we're helping you to rewrite your communications effectively in there. So we're able to author this and be able to bring in that Copilot experience here too. And so you can see here, Copilot is helping me to rewrite some things. Maybe I'm less stimulated than I was at when I was authoring this communication, or I need to tighten up the language. Copilot is able to help me with that too. Now, vision-wise, since Amplify is still very new, it is about 6 months old, it's the newest area of our solution. And so I wanted to share just a little bit on the vision side of what we're doing. And so our goal is really thinking about Amplify as a tool where you can go from anywhere. So amplifying from anywhere, so in this example, I have a vision sort of slide here that helps you to understand, maybe I'm starting in Word, where oftentimes I'm drafting my communication. I want to be able to send that communication out to all of these different places, right? I want to go to Teams and SharePoint and Engage and Outlook and Connections, and I want to be able to do that from where I author. And so this is really the vision of how we're going with Amplify. We want to make it super simple for you to be able to author that across all of these different areas, and then of course make sure that those communications are effective. In the end, right, if we can spend less time doing more effective things, we get to learn as part of that too. So that's just a little bit about Amplify. And then I'm going to talk us through a couple of different areas here on the roadmap, and then we'll be able to take some questions.
Thank you, Naomi.
Good. Oh, good. Are you guys good? Yes? Checking? Woo! Yes? All right. Thank you. It's good fun, isn't it? It's fun after the attendee party to do this. It's all good. All right, we've got lots of goodness. So you've heard so much already about Engage and Connections and what we're doing with Amplify. But this is an amazing solution, right? And we are bringing so much more richness into everything that we're doing. And so I just wanted to highlight just a couple of different areas here. So first off, I will just, there's some really cool and sexy features on here. We're thinking about all the different types of analytics, all of the things that we're doing from a corporate communications perspective, and then Jason talked a lot about the knowledge sharing piece too. But I also want to make sure that you understand, like, there's lots of things we're evolving inside of the product. So this kind of category that's out here about continuous improvement, right? That is from us learning and listening to you all. You giving us feedback into the product, and then we make things better because of that. So lots of goodness there. We've got a new landing experience coming from Connections here, and updated adaptive cards and making it easier there too. Now, on the second half of this year, this is the piece where, again, lots of goodness that's happening, both from a Copilot adoption perspective. So if you're rolling out Copilot inside of your organization, we have an amazing canned community that we're using inside of Engage. I showed you a little bit about Amplify, where we have those Copilot communications that are all ready to send inside of your organization too. And then, of course, we're making sure that we're fulfilling the needs of our corporate communicators here too. There's just lots and lots of goodness that's happening here. All right. Then lastly, just a couple things. I wanted to make sure that folks have, the areas to understand a little bit about that seeded value and licensing. And so here's a little chart. I know it's a little bit of an eye chart to see, but it's really helpful, I think, to be able to see how you can get started easily with the seeded value that you already have in Microsoft 365. And then essentially you can upgrade as you need more and more of those capabilities too. Now, we've got just a couple things here about how to get started and taking those next steps. We do have things like trials of the product, so that's an easy way for you all to be able to test it out. If you're interested or intrigued by any of these premium functions, it's a simple way for you to be able to do that. And then, of course, we have a whole bunch of resources on the adoption.microsoft.com and be able to check out those as well. All right, with that, we're good? Yes? Yes? All right. Now we get to the piece where you get to ask all of your difficult questions and all of the goodness that's important to you as well.
So with Viva Connections, you talked about the different conglomerates in Microsoft, Activision. How many of those can you have set up?
You can have up to 50 independent Connections instances. We bumped that. It was 3 at the end of last year, and that just wasn't enough. In January, it bumped up to 50.
Yay.
Who else? 8:50 in the morning.
Go for it.
Big
Over here.
All right. Sorry. It's a long room.
I know.
If you're sending a message or a campaign to different channels like Outlook, SharePoint, Teams, if you're someone that looks at all those different channels, are you going to see the message in all those channels? Or if you've seen it in Teams, then you won't see it in Outlook and on SharePoint?
Yeah, so it'll be available. If you're sending it through Amplify, you'll be able to see it in wherever the communicator sent it to. We are deduping the notifications piece of it, though, so that you don't feel like you're being, repetitively progressed in there, too. And then from an analytics perspective, we only count you once. So even if you consume the same message in Teams and in Outlook, we're only going to count you once. Yeah, thanks.
So I noticed on the previous slide where you had the licensing set up, I had 2 quick questions for you on that.
Yeah.
For the Copilot and Viva capabilities to light up, do you have to have the seated license for Engage Premium enabled? Or is if you just have the Viva Suite on the account, they will get that?
So I'll speak about Engage and then maybe you speak about the other parts. So for the Engage Copilot that I showed you for authoring posts, what you need is the Viva license or called the CNC license, essentially. So you need to be licensed for Viva. You do not need to be licensed for M365 Copilot in order to get that Engage Copilot experience. But as we take answers from Engage into M365 Copilot, then you will need the M365 Copilot license. So I don't know for other areas.
Yeah, it's the same answer. So you need to have for Copilot inside of an application, you need to have a Viva Suite license or the CNC license, as we call it. So it's Copilot is a premium functionality, but it's not required to have that Microsoft 365 Copilot. So if you're in the app, you're good.
And just the second part was I also noticed the people in Viva license still shown. I haven't seen much information on that product in a while. Is there anything you could share about that?
I did just share at the beginning. Sorry, I went really quickly on that.
Sorry.
That's okay. No worries if you came in late. But yes, people in Viva is included in there. There is a slide in the deck about it. We just didn't have time to go through all of the capabilities.
And everybody will get the decks. I think they show up
Yes.
about a week later, so all coming to
Yeah.
you. All right, one more.
Yeah, just a quick question about the license. What's the difference between the CNC license and the Viva Suite? Because the charts.
Yeah, so just to clarify, what the CNC license is it's a subset of the overall Viva Suite license. So the CNC license essentially contains Engage Premium, the stuff that I showed earlier, Amplify, and then the Connections Premium work, as well as I think People in Viva. So it's those areas, but it's a subset of the overall Viva Suite license. And obviously a subset of the overall Viva Suite price.
Yeah. So this one at the beginning has all of the Viva Suite applications, just to be very clear. I know there's a lot of goodness in there, right, inside of those apps. And so you're getting essentially with the communications and communities piece, you're getting part of those three applications we talked to today. Does that help? That's awesome.
Our CIO pushed everyone to Teams, so we have a lot of messaging through the channels, et cetera. You know, do you have any advice for value for trying to transition to Viva Engage for that type of communication?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think it depends on what type of communication you're trying to achieve. So, I think, obviously Engage or Teams channels are great for that collaboration, for project teams that are working together trying to get things done. Really think that's where the sweet spot is for those channels. For Engage, we really think of the heart of the product as communities. This is really what connects people across the organization together. So for things like employee resource groups or employee services, large scale leadership communication. So I think where some of the places that Engage will excel for certain use cases is really around, being able to discover things across the company, being able to have kind of individual knowledge sharing and expression. So that's kind of really where we focus. So we see those use cases as different. We do have Engage integrated into Teams through the Engage app. So with that, you can get all your notifications for Engage in the Teams activity feed. You don't actually have to leave the Teams kind of Chrome or window. So that does help bring those two together. But we do see those two different use cases of like leadership communication and community versus collaboration, team collaboration. I think Mike wants to fill in with a few more things too.
One thing to think about as you're planning out your communication as well is if there's other people in the organization who could potentially benefit from what you're going to share, Engage is a great place to start that communication because the communications are open and discoverable. They get sucked up into feeds. They can still notify people who need to have the criticality of that info. But when you share it in Teams, you've already kind of prescribed who can see this message. So if there is like a net positive benefit of other people seeing it, Engage is a great starting point.
And Mike, who are you?
I am the product marketing manager for the CNC suite.
So to expand on that a little bit, in order to roll it out effectively and change the narrative of a communication style like that, where everything's inside of Teams and not in Engage, Amplify, is it better to roll out all three at the same time? Roll out Engage first, get more familiar with that, then roll out the other two?
I think a lot of it is depending on the kind of the ROI that you're looking for quickest, right? So Connections might be a great place to start if you need a top of your intranet experience, essentially, right? That's bringing together all of the company news as well as understanding your dashboard. Engage is a great place to get started with your communities, right? So if you have lots of active communities happening, it's a good place too. And then Amplify is there to help you with your communications that are going out, right? Essentially there too. So wherever is the most value for you all to get started. The good news is there's lots of good ways to do that, right? And so it's really thinking through like what's that objective that you can do fast. It's very possible to roll all three at the same time. You should think of this as a solution. Hopefully you've seen that it's incredibly synergistic across all of these experiences and then making sure that you're getting the value that you need out of that. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you.